Okay,
Why
so
was not?
we know the history of Baloch persecution in Iran. It did not start with Khomeini. We know that when the pre-Khomeini regimes were ruling Iran during the Shah time, during Mossadegh time, and even before that, Baloch were under persecution. This is a long and sustained history of persecution. How do we see this? Right now the movement seems like in Iran it's about change of regime. It's not about
Mhm.
just reforms, but change of regime. So let's assume that we have a new regime, which is probably pro-Shah or composed of liberals or a mix of different elements that come together against Khomeini's ideology. How is it that going to be different for the Baluch people? I'm really interested in knowing. Let's say if Shah or Shah's supports are back in Tehran and they're ruling the country, and let's say we have a democratic setup, how is it? How is that going to be any different for the Baluch living in the Western Balochistan?
The thing is that in Iran we have not only Baloch, as you mentioned, there are other national minorities, the Kurds, Arabs, Turkmen, and the Azerbaijani Turks, which almost make up more than half of the population in Iran. Uh, the Turks are very large population and they are very economically strong in Iran. And they are also for kind of some of their parties are for self-determination and some parties for self-determination and federalism. The same with the Kurdish region. So in Iran, there is a setup, there is a kind of strong force to change Iran to a decentralized country. And that is a fact, and it is something that's maybe somehow impossible in Iran. But in politics, you could not say everything is just like that possible. The thing is that we have to be much more organized, and that's what's showing that each region. No, there is no political party that can represent the whole of Iran. For instance, in Pakistan, maybe you see the army or the Pakistani political party somehow have some presence in the Sindh region, in Pashtun region, or in Baloch region, or in Punjab, of course, they dominate. But the thing is that in Iranian side, there is no political party which extend beside their ethnic groups. And that's somehow a dilemma at the same time, which could be a solution for Iran for the future. For some kind of confederation or federation, if Iranian Persian community would accept that one. Previously, they have been very much against that one. But given this uprising, they see that the people in Iran somehow has been united. They have got a common identity against this regime. Everybody for their own reason is out. The Kurds for their own reason, the Turks for their own reason, people in Tehran for their reason, and the Baloch in Balochistan for their own reason. But they are all coordinated somehow. They all have one aim, and all of them saying, well, now currently we want to get off this regime, and we want to live together. We want to create a good future together. And that's what we are hearing currently. But it doesn't give guarantees that the things will be the same after the change, as you say. And there we, as a Baluch, as the Kurdish community, a Turk community, or Arab, and the Turkmen, and there are other large communities like Lor, who are largest community than Baluch, but they are not that much organized. They have to be organized too. So there is a kind of understanding that we, as a national minorities in Iran, has to be much more organized, have to have a good presence. And now, actually, we can see that this uprising, although there has been other part of Iran, but the epicenter of this uprising is either Kurdish region or the Baluch region. For instance, now for a while there has been less demonstration or less strike in Iran, but today we saw in Balochistan that again there was demonstration in many cities in Balochistan. So tomorrow maybe in another part. So the people are coordinating, and this is what creating kind of a coordination. At the same time, it has been difficult for the regime to get everybody to get a suppressive unit or forces to different part of the country, because Iran is a large country and there are different communities and everybody going his own way now currently. But everybody is going in his own way, but with one vision that we want to get off this regime and create a country where we all can live peacefully and survive and be united and help each other. Currently, what is I'm saying about this uprising? This is what people can hear, this is what people can see, and this is what's happening in Iran. And everybody is trying to avoid any kind of situation where there would be some kind of difficulties to be united against the regime. Regime actually, I don't know if you have heard, currently there was some bulletin come out and even a voice from Iranian side that was by the hacker went out that they want, for instance, how to make sure that the Molavi Abdul Hamid create a bad name for him, create some kind of criticism or blaming for something, that he loses his prestige. And this is what's happening. The regime knows that it's not time to kill him, maybe to arrest him, because he's very not only popular in the Baloch region, but even other regions, some people are supporting it because he, even as a conservative religious man, he have defended the woman's right. And today, actually, he said in Iran there should be freedom of religion. And he mentioned the Roshtian and Baha'is. Baha'is in Iran are like, I don't know, the worst case in Iran. But he said they should be free too. So these kind of things, now currently people want to hear these kind of things. And he knows what people want to hear, and he's saying those things. So everybody is trying to make sure that things are not go out of hand and the regime do not come and divide and rule again, because it has been doing that previously.
Let me bring Zafar in here. Zafar, can you hear me? Zafar, I have a question for you. So, and this question came from the other listeners. So we know that we have death squads or these militant groups within the Pakistani-occupied Balochistan who are attacking the freedom fighters, the activists, the women, and they have support from ISI, and they are against any kind of freedom movement within the Pakistani-occupied Balochistan. But there's this view, there's this perception that the same militant group, which is supported by ISI, they have some kind of, in alignment with the different groups that are emerging in the Iran-occupied Balochistan. They support the movement in Iran-occupied Balochistan. Do you see a mismatch, like a double standards here from these ISI-supported groups who are against the freedom and human rights movements within the Pakistani-occupied Balochistan, but they seem like, they are supporting, at least, verbally, if not logistically or financially, supporting different movements in the Iran-occupied Balochistan?
Thank you, Sanjay, for this question. I was trying to use the earphones. They are not working because I couldn't hear much, so I took them off. Now I'm speaking directly. I hope the background noise is not too much. And my voice is clear?
You're good. Please go ahead. You're good.
All right. So thank you again. And what's happening in Eastern Balochistan and the uprising that's going on in the Western Balochistan in relation to what happened all over Iran, the movement that came up against the regime and is really taking momentum. So there's a difference here. The groups that have hit upon Iranian regime in the past, you are referring to Sunni groups. Those groups are not part, if I'm correct in understanding your question, they are not part of the death squads that are operating within the Eastern Balochistan. In Eastern Balochistan, the death squads are totally made up of local people and the local tribal organizations, some of them in Khuzar area, like Shafiq Mengal group, and some of them are in the Makran region, and they are mostly related to drug mafia groups and organizations that have been there for quite some time. So petty criminals, drug mafia, some tribal organizations, settings, different regions of Balochistan and Eastern Balochistan have become and have been recruited as part and parcel of the contras against the freedom movement. But it's not just targeting the freedom movement itself only. It's also targeting any kind of thought, any kind of democratic, secular organization, which may also be part of the parliament at the same time. So many of parliamentarian organizations and parties and political organizations have been targeted not only in Balochistan but also in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Like, for example, you'll see a lot of attacks by Taliban in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa on Awami National Party. The same is true about some of the Balochistan National Party people in Khozdar and other parts who were targeted, although they were part of the parliamentarian system. And along with that, there are lots of other voices coming from the different sections of the society in Balochistan, Eastern Balochistan, which represent, for example, students, represent women, represent journalists, and other kinds of freedom within society, which may not be directly part of the freedom struggle at the same time, but they are also targeted. So right now, like any kind of association with anything at all that has any nationalism within it, or a national direction or identity led by, for example, the Baloch rights, for example, in Gwadar, that the Gwadar should be operated, the Gwadar should be free from not only Pakistani military and their allies, but also from the Chinese influence. So that's another kind of angle to it, in which any voice coming out of Balochistan, whether it's for freedom, independence of Balochistan, or any kind of democratic representation within the society, is being targeted by the military, by the state, and their allies, which are called the death squads.
Yes, you're right. I mean, you're right. What I was trying to ask is that these death squads that are so against freedom movements within the eastern Balochistan or Pakistan-occupied Balochistan, do they have any support? They have extended any support to the different movements in the western part of Balochistan, or they are also against, those groups in the western Balochistan?
We haven't found any direct links or connections that we can identify or bring up as an evidence. But what has been noted so far in the recent history, as well as in the past, that on the state level, Iran and Pakistan have been collaborating with each other right from the period of Shah and up till now. There have been meetings, secret meetings of their intelligence agencies, of their state representatives, against the Baloch sentiments, the Baloch movements, and the struggles in eastern Balochistan and in western Balochistan, especially on the border regions. So any Baloch who tries to escape from eastern Balochistan, for example, and if they are finding any kind of refuge in the western Balochistan, because there are lots of tribal and family connections over there, so far we have evidence that more than 40 or 50 of such migrants who were forced out of their homes in eastern Balochistan and sought refuge in western Balochistan were target killed. Many of them were not even militants. They were just members of political organizations and members of political parties, but they were attacked because of the death squads in eastern Balochistan. Many of their family members were enforced, disappeared, and killed. So some of the family members and their heads, they moved towards into the western part of the Balochistan, in the western Balochistan area. But even over there, they were target killed by the ISI. Now, how that happens is that such information is shared. The information is being shared by, on the state level, on the intelligence organizations level, against any kind of movement or association with such people, whether it's in eastern Balochistan or western Balochistan. They are being target killed. And we have evidence of that in eastern Balochistan, death squads were facilitated, moved into western Balochistan, and over there they target killed people who who were refugees over there. Basically, they were just seeking some kind of like escape from Eastern Balochistan's persecution.
I'm going to come back to Nasser. Nasser, one of the casualty when a nation is divided between two colonial powers is obviously culture, our identity, our language. In Pakistan and in the Pakistani occupied Balochistan, we know how the Pakistani establishment attacks Baloch who speak their own language or try to wear their national dress. What is the situation in Iran occupied Balochistan? Do you see a different scenario emerging because there will be, in future, we will expect a more democratic and open Iran that would emerge? And do you think that will have a positive impact on your Baloch culture? Nasser, do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Thank you very much. I forgot to unmute my mic here. Pakistan actually has been much more harsher when it's come to Baloch culture than Iran. I mean, much harsher than Pakistan. In Pakistan, at least, you have a Baloch academy and you have some Balochi magazine, and to sometimes you have some Balochi maybe newspapers maybe write something in Balochi. But in Iranian side, during the Shah's time, it was not possible. Currently, there has been some opening in recent years. There has been some books published and like this. But the thing is that Iran, when it's come to building a nation state based on one language, one religion, and one history, has been comparably to Pakistan much more harsher and very much in line with the kind of chauvinistic and you could say racistic policies that they have learned from the previous European country like Mussolini and these kind of things. They have been trying to somehow suppress Baloch culture much more, and that's what is, and even politically, we have had a different political kind of development in eastern Balochistan. And actually, there is a question because when you see the Baloch woman from eastern side of Balochistan in demonstration, they have only the Balochi dress and Balochi shawl. But in Iran, the Baloch woman has to have this kind of what we call it Iranian shawl, which cover the whole body. So there is a difference in that in those two sides. But what we know, everybody is hoping, not only us Baloch, but the Kurds and everybody else in Iran, that in the next regime or next government or next state that develops, we are part of that development. We are not simply in the receiving end. We will be part of that, how to organize the new state, how to organize new government. And if we are not part of that, so that's clearly something that we do not want to be. And now the discussion is going on with the other parties in Iran, actually from our side, when they say we want to have a secular Iran and we have a democratic Iran, and the women's right, because we has been very important currently given this revolution. This was not a revolution, but it's uprising. We say, okay, for you, because you have your own kind of culture now, it's safe in Iran, your Persian language, your history, and if you just get this freedom of religion and freedom of thought, your problem has been solved. And of course, when you say we have equal gender right, that would solve your problem, but it will not solve the problem for the Baloch women and Kurd women. When Baloch and Kurd are suppressed because of their language or because of their geography, because of their history, that means a Baloch woman would not be equal with a Persian woman. If a nation is suppressed, women will be suppressed 3 or 4 times more than men in that region. So your gender equality will not work there. And when you say secularism is more important than federalism, who says that is more important? For who? For us, both of them are equal. You either accept both, you leave all of the question out of the discussion. If you bring one into the discussion, we bring the other into the discussion. We have to have an agreement. If you don't have an agreement, then nobody has an agreement. Then everybody can go in his own way. So the thing is that the discussion that we are having is very harsh. Either we say, okay, we do not agree on anything, we just go against the regime change. That's okay for us. But if you bring the Iranian territorial integrity, you bring secularism, and you bring the gender right, why not federalism? Who says those things are more important than federalism? For us, all of them are the same. Same We want the same guarantees as you want for the secularism, as you want for the gender right. We want the same. We guarantee that our national right. For us, our argument is that the Baloch, we have lived together as a Baloch. It doesn't matter. We have fought with each other as this tribe and that tribe. But we have come together because we have felt that we are Baloch, be it Brahui, be it Balochi, be it Balochi speaking, I mean, be it some extent Sraiki or Jadgali. We all have come together and live together because we have share a common land and we think that we are all Baloch. So for thousands of years, we cannot say just no that we have to accept the demographic change because we now have created a nation state in the name of Iran, or we are all Muslim. No, we are first of all Baloch, and there should be guarantees. As you want the guarantees for your territorial integrity, you want guarantees for the Baloch kind of community. We are not against anybody coming to Balochistan. The whole world can come to Balochistan, from America to Saudi Arabia to the Russia to the Sweden and from anywhere in the world. But when they come in Balochistan, they have to be integrated in the Baloch culture, not vice versa that we have to speak Persian with them. When they come to Balochistan, they have to learn Balochi. Not we are not supposed to talk with them in Persian because
Nasir, I know that China and Iran are very good friends and they're strategic partners, they're economic partners. They're more than $400 billion that China is trying to put in Iran, and they're doing a lot of mega infrastructure projects in Iran. And right now we see there's an uprising in China as well. You see they're like even the Hans are burning down their structures and buildings. They're attacking their paramilitary and police forces, and there's a huge uprising in East Turkestan and Tibetan areas. Do you see any alignment between the Chinese communist regime and the Iranian Islamist regime? Are they working together? When it comes to within Balochistan, I'm talking about is there any Chinese support for the Iranian regime to crush? Because we know the Chinese are helping the Pakistanis in East Balochistan. That is very, evident, and we have a lot of evidence of and information about that. But what is the situation on the western side?
There is cooperation, particularly in cyber. Actually, we had a report, I think it was 2019, where there was a report come out that Iran control many people, oppositional groups, but it target Baloch, particularly Baloch community, and it showed our party's name, Balochistan People's Party's name, that this party is also very much under surveillance by the Iranian regime, both inside and outside the country. So there is a lot of these kind of things that's going on. And another thing that some people do forget, China is not only building this Belt and Road Initiative, it's creating this Silk Road, the digital Silk Road too. And that one, when it starts from, as you said, from the China, it has to pass both from the both sides of the Balochistan, both sides of the border, current border that exists there. And for that reason, China want to control those. In the contract that you mentioned, 400 billion that China and Iran has signed, in that one, the security and cyber security, two cities of Balochistan, Jask and Chabar, would be given to China. So China, if the thing is that China currently do not do business with Iran because of the JCPOA and the sanction, the tax with Trump that came out from the JCPOA. Otherwise, the China and Iran cooperation with that is very large, much more extended than what they have in Pakistan. As you mentioned, what is they are investing in Iran, it's maybe 2-3 times more than what they're investing in Pakistan. And given the Iranian natural resources which China need, because even the natural resources from the other side of the Gulf, Iran combined energy resources of Iran is larger than both Saudi Arabia. If you compare with one country, I mean Saudi Arabia separately with Russia, so it's larger. So that's why they wanted to have a good cooperation, and that's one of the problems that we have in future. India tried to come there in that region in Chabar to a lesser extent, and Iran kicked it out because of the Chinese interest. China and India could not be in the same city in Chabar. So Iran expelled India, and those contracts was laid off, and now the contract with the China is on board. And they are working together, but given the JCPOA and this large amount of the money they have to be involved. It is at least not very active. And as we know what's happening in Pakistan, China only come to say that they are doing something, but in reality, just they want to take the natural resources, create some roads for their own use, and then later nothing will happen. We don't know how the things will develop in Iran in future when they have some kind of contract with the US and the China can invest there. And this is one of the arguments that we have to use to say that if there is this contract between Iran and China, then US, then China will be the winner, not the US, not the people in Iran or not the Baloch people. The winner only will be China. And it is what's happening there. And Chinese interest is actually much more larger than Belt and Road Initiative. It has this digital impact that China wants to rival America because he wants that. And that's something that for Iran is very important because Iran wants to avoid American internet or digital road too because it wants to use the Chinese and Chinese give them an opportunity to control everybody inside Iran or even if they want outside.
Zafar, I'm going to come to you. It seems like there's a little bit, the priorities are a little different when it comes to Eastern and Western Balochistan, which is, fair given their circumstances, given their, historical perspective. The Baloch in the Iranian occupied part, they want federalism. They want to try to coexist with equal respect and dignity and, the cultural rights. But the Baloch in the eastern, the Pakistani occupied parts, they want freedom. How do you look at this situation? Like, what do you make of it?
Okay. What I think is that both Eastern Balochistan and Western Balochistan are regions occupied by states that have different history. I mean, the political history and history at large, like, for example, the Persian Empire was a vast empire that not only ruled large areas of Balochistan, but also Afghanistan and went up till India. So, and they have their own history. I don't want to go into that history because that's also controversial parts in it. But coming back to Pakistan is that Pakistan, the way it was founded in 1947 by the British, by dividing India, then occupying Balochistan in 1948, has a bit of a different kind of a history. Pakistan itself is a kind of an artificial state that was created as a military mercenary state just for the basic interests of the British and later Americans in the region. The history of Iran is completely different, coming from a vast empire and the monarchies before that. But both areas did fight for independence. And they are fighting right now. And in Iran, if we look back in the 1916, during the World War I period, there were great uprisings in Balochistan, in Western Balochistan. There was a complete declaration of independence by Dosmat Barakzai and his state at that time. And that was also supported by the uprisings in the Zahedan region. So, but it was crushed. It was crushed with the support of the British at that time, and the British were really looking into controlling Iran and keeping the Iran away from Russia and the Germans and the Russians. And there was a fear that the Russians or the Germans might take over Iran. And at that time, there were lots of uprisings going on, freedom struggles and movements within Iran that could break Iran apart. So the British intervened. So that's how a very vital and very organized way of struggle against the Iranian regime at that time, against the monarchies, was crushed with the help of the British. So both in Eastern and Western Balochistan, British has footprints of direct intervention and control as a colonial power. And that's how they have maintained it. then onwards we go that in eastern Balochistan, because of Pakistan's constitutional situations and because of the kind of colonial rule that was in those parts of which became later Pakistan, there was a sort of a democratic or constitutional or parliamentary systems. So that changed a little bit towards where Baloch could have the freedom to go to the parliament and win elections and form their governments. Especially in 1972, Balochistan had its provincial government led by the governor Mir Hosbash Gazinjo and Sardar Atala Mingal was chief minister. But that didn't last long. But however, because of that, because of lots of political movements in Balochistan, the right to have a political organization, a party, and all that, Eastern Balochistan had this opportunity to go through all the systems of running into working within the state, but it did not work out. So finally, they came to the solution that in any case, Baloch nation has the right, and the only way that they can be rulers of Balochistan or rule or have the self-determination, political self-determination, and economic power is through freedom. That was one thing which went from the 1960s up till now. In Western Balochistan, we see that because there was never such a democracy in all of Iran, there was monarchy, there were military dictatorships, and now there is a theocratic dictatorship that went on for like 40 years now. So the situation, the political situation in Iran is different. Because of that, the Baloch over there, or Western Balochistan, never got the kind of the freedoms that we had in Eastern Balochistan. So I think they will go through all that, but the problem again comes to this point that will they get their self-determination? That is still a question. We don't know yet. This theocratic regime in Iran is not going to give up power so easily. It could go very bloody. It could go into a civil war. And if it sticks to the power and uses brutal force, then it could break up the regions that will be crushed by the regime in different ways. So we still don't know yet, but the only thing is that right now, regime change for Baloch, just like Nasir said, regime change will not compensate for any political freedoms for the Baloch or for the national minorities, because regime change could also bring another dictator into power. Regime change could also bring the son of Raza Shah into power, or reformists into power. So that will not mean much for the democratic rights and the national rights of the Baloch people or the Kurdish people. Finally, we have to stick together against the regime, but regime change by itself is not the solution right now. Regime has to go, but at the same time, it is very important for the oppressed nations, Baloch and Kurds and others, to have an equal participation, equal representation in the political and economic decision making. And if that doesn't happen, and if Baloch and Kurds and others are not recognized as people, as nations, and their language and their culture and heritage and history is not recognized, there won't be any democracy, neither in Balochistan or Kurdistan or anywhere in Iran, without the support and the equal participation of the oppressed nations.
वॉइस ऑफ बलूचिस्तान जो है उन्होंने एक सवाल करने की रिक्वेस्ट की है, तो मैं वॉइस ऑफ बलूचिस्तान से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा काइंडली आप अपना सवाल कीजिए, फिर उसके बाद मैं पीर ज़ुबैर शाह साहब की तरफ जाऊंगा अगले सवाल के लिए।
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम। इसमें मेरा सवाल ये है कि अभी कुछ दिन पहले जो है 6 साल हो गया एक गुलाम मुस्तफा नामी शख्स को जो है पाकिस्तान ने हाईजैक किया था, मिसिंग किया था, और वो 6 साल से जो है और क्वेटा में उसके फैमिली जो है हस्बैंड हो वहाँ पे जो है एहतिजाज कर रहे थे उसके क्वेटा में 6 सालों से। तो एक जो है पाकिस्तान ने अपनी एक कुद्दूस गंजो नामी शख्स के साथ उसकी पैगाम भेजा उसकी फैमिली को, और ये कहा कि आपके फैमिली जो है आपका गुलाम मुस्तफा नामी शख्स जो है जेल में तशद्दुद के दौरान जो है वो मर गया, उसको मार दिया गया। तो बलूचिस्तान में कितने सालों से 15 ईयर यानी 15 से 20 ईयर हो गया पाकिस्तान जो है पाकिस्तान आर्मी hijack any Baloch maybe 1 week 7 8 Baloch hijack Pakistan military missing and dropped inside jail. 6 7 8 year going, dead body is found. You see Multan after 1 month Multan inside Multan 500 bodies is found Pakistan. Why you not test DNA test? You see Iran every day, every month Baloch kill, genocide Baloch. United Nations UN why silence? Why no come inside Pakistan? China is support, big support China, Pakistan, US support Pakistan, missing every Baloch, you see inside every day, Iran inside Balochistan every day, Iran army is coming, weapon used, all Baloch kill, every day 1 2 Baloch kill. Why kill? Why silence UN?
जी जफर I think ये सवाल बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है।
Only United Nations, US only see Baloch report. Water treated, you see water, you come water inside water, all Baloch people inside who no drink water. You see there are bukti, you create gas supply going to Punjab, you come there are bukti, no gas. Every Baloch whom you go, no gas. Why no gas? You only resort Baloch, take you Baloch resort, no problem. Why you missing any Baloch? Why you hijack Baloch? Why you kill Baloch?
बहुत शुक्रिया, थैंक यू, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। जफर देखिए इसमें यूनाइटेड नेशन का जो रोल है ना, एक एम्पैथी आपको नज़र कहीं नहीं आती है एज फार एज बलोच आर कंसर्न। वो बेशक ईरान मकबूजा हो, पाकिस्तान मकबूजा हो, यूनाइटेड नेशन की तरफ से कोई भी यानी इस तरीके से रिस्पांस नहीं आता है। ईरान में अगर तब्दीली आ भी गई तो उसमें फिर ये जो पाकिस्तान में मजालिम हो रहे हैं उसके बारे में यानी क्या तब्दीली आएगी, क्या आप फ्यूचर देख रहे हैं जफर?
जी हाँ, ये सवाल जो है वो यूनाइटेड नेशन और इंटरनेशनल कम्युनिटी के ऊपर आता है, उनकी जिम्मेदारियों पे, और आलमी कवानीन जो हैं वो राइट्स के डिफेंस के लिए बनाए गए थे। और यूनाइटेड नेशन एक ऐसा इदारा है जो कि ह्यूमन राइट्स को ऑप्रेस्ड नेशंस और इस तरह की सोसाइटीज़ जहाँ पर इस तरह की गवर्नमेंट्स हों, डिक्टेटरशिप्स हों, या कि मजहबी जबर हो, या और तरह के मिलिट्री ऑपरेशंस चल रहे हों, एग्रेशन चल रहे हों, वहाँ पर जो ह्यूमन राइट्स की वायलेशंस हैं उसमें हम ये देखते हैं कि बहुत सारे ममालिक ऐसे हैं जो कि पोस्ट कॉलोनियल पीरियड के अंदर वो नेशंस और जनरल पब्लिक की बात मैं करूँगा कि वो भी इसमें ट्रैप्ड हैं। हुआ ये है कि ये सारा का सारा जो पोस्ट कॉलोनियल सिस्टम है, सोसाइटीज़ जो उस कॉलोनियल सिस्टम के यूरोप से निकले, वो दोबारा इस तरह के बहुत सारी गवर्नमेंट्स की और बहुत सारे इंटरनेशनल जो इंटरेस्ट्स हैं, चाहे वो यूरोपियन नेशंस के हों, माजी के जो पास्ट के जो कॉलोनाइजर्स थे, या यूएस जैसे सुपर पावर के हों, इनके जो इंटरेस्ट हैं वो मिडल ईस्ट से लेकर साउथ एशिया तक हर जगह पर इनकी डिफेंस के लिए ये स्टेट्स वजूद में आए। मसलन पाकिस्तान हो या मौजूदा ईरान की गवर्नमेंट हो, ये इसके पीछे यूएस के और यूरोपियन कॉलोनियल पावर्स जो माजी में रहे हैं, इनके बहुत बड़े इंटरेस्ट हैं, और वो अपने उन इंटरेस्ट के डिफेंस के हवाले से इन स्टेट्स के साथ और इनकी मिलिट्री के साथ और इनके स्टेट जो उनके साथ मुख्तलिफ़ किस्म के टर्म्स और एग्रीमेंट्स पे जो कि इकनॉमिक हैं, माशी हैं, पेट्रोल के लिए हों या किसी और जंगी उसके लिए हों, वो ह्यूमन राइट्स को और जंगी जराइम को जो इन रीजन्स के अंदर हो रही हैं, इन रियासती जबर के हवाले से, इनको इग्नोर करते हैं, इनको अवॉइड करते हैं, इनसे चशमपोशी करते हैं। और ये हमें बहुत शुरू से नज़र आ रहा है कि इसी वजह से अब ये जो रियासत है, इस रियासत से छुटकारा ही हमारे तमाम राइट्स का हल नज़र आता है। ऐसा लगता है, ऐसा महसूस होता है जैसे माजी में भी था कि अब ह्यूमन राइट्स के लिए आप अपने आप को टोटली सरेंडर करें, अपने तमाम हुकूक से दस्तबरदार हो जाएं और अपने आप को बलूचिस्तान के हवाले से ये कहें कि इस्लामाबाद टोटली हमें रूल और गवर्न कर सकता है और मिलिट्री यहाँ पर जो है एक पावर है। इस चीज़ को मानते हुए बलोच जो है अपने तमाम राइट सरेंडर कर लें, तब जाके हम आपके मिसिंग पर्सनस को छोड़ेंगे। ये बातें पहले भी ह्यूमन राइट्स के ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के अंदर डिस्कस हुई थी। यहाँ तक कि अस्मा जहांगीर जब जिंदा थी तो उनके साथ भी बहुत सारे क्वेटा में जो डिस्कशन हुई थी, तो उन्होंने एक बात उस वक्त भी कही थी कि ये जो फ्रीडम स्ट्रगल है आपकी, ये जब तक चल रही है हम ह्यूमन राइट्स की जो वायलेशंस हैं उसके बारे में बोल तो सकते हैं लेकिन उनको रोक नहीं सकते। तो उनका जो इशारा था वो इसी तरफ था कि आप अपने राइट्स के बारे में जो भी डिमांड करेंगे, उन राइट्स को मशरूत किया जा रहा है इस बात से कि आपके जो आज़ादियाँ हैं उनको आप किस तरह सरेंडर करेंगे स्टेट के आगे। मुश्किल ये हो गई कि ईस्टर्न बलूचिस्तान के अंदर ये फैसला अब किया गया है और उस फैसले के तहत ये सब चीज़ें आ रही हैं कि अगर आपने आज अपने तमाम राइट्स सरेंडर कर दिए और बलोच कौम जो है वो कहे कि हमें पाकिस्तान से, पाकिस्तान की मिलिट्री से और इस्लामाबाद से और इनके रूलिंग क्लासेस से और पंजाब से किसी भी किस्म का गिला शिकवा डिमांड है ही नहीं। अब आएँ यहाँ पर, चाइना को लाएँ, जो भी करें, ग्वादर भी आप कर सब कुछ है। ये वो चीज़ है जो बलूचिस्तान को टोटली नए जेनोसाइड की तरफ ले जाएगी। यानी कि आपके पास अब कोई चॉइस ही नहीं रहा। जिस दिन आपने अपने राइट्स को सरेंडर किया, अपने इस राइट को कि आप डिमांड कर रहे हैं अपने राइट्स की, उसको भी सरेंडर कर दिया, तो फिर आपका जो जेनोसाइड है वो उस पीक पे जाएगा जहाँ पर आपका वजूद, आपके सर्वाइवल का मसला बन जाएगा। और ये वो चीज़ है जो बलूचिस्तान को अब आज तक स्ट्रगल में रखे हुए है। ये बहुत बड़ी अफसोसनाक बात है कि इंटरनेशनल इदारे, यूनाइटेड नेशन और इंटरनेशनल इदारे जो यूनाइटेड नेशन को रन करते हैं, मसलन जो गवर्नमेंट्स हैं यूएस की और यूरोपियन पार्लियामेंट है और फ्रांस है या बरतानिया है, उनकी डायरेक्ट मदाखलत के बगैर, उनके फैसलों के बगैर, उनके इख्तियारात के बगैर यूनाइटेड नेशन से आप कोई किसी किस्म का भी फैसला ह्यूमन राइट्स के हवाले से ही सही, एनफोर्स डिसअपीयरेंस के हवाले से ही सही, आप मनवा ही नहीं सकते। वहाँ पर भी हमने कई बार इनसे जो मीटिंग्स की थी, उन्होंने कहा था कि जब तक यूएस है, बरतानिया है, इनकी जो गवर्नमेंट्स हैं, जब तक इनमें ये वो नहीं होगा, चेंज नहीं आएगा इनकी थिंकिंग में कि ये इस बलूचिस्तान के इशू को इतनी अहमियत है और अपने
मैं यहाँ पीर ज़ुबैर साहब को लाना चाहूँगा। ज़ुबैर शाह साहब जो हैं वो हमारे सीनियर मेंबर हैं वाशिंगटन ग्रुप के, एक सीनियर जर्नलिस्ट हैं। आपका ताल्लुक जो है वो खैबर पख्तूनख्वा से है। अमेरिका में आप मुकीम हैं, वॉइस ऑफ अमेरिका के साथ आपकी बहुत लंबी जो है एसोसिएशन है। Peer Saab, as a journalist, how do you look at the situation, from the perspective of that we just have a new regime in Afghanistan, which came pretty much the same time last year, and they are also struggling to survive. And then now we see a big change coming in Western Balochistan, Iran-occupied Balochistan. Will that bring any changes in Afghanistan as well? Will that bring any changes in Pakistan? How do you look at it?
Thank you very much, Sami Saab, or everyone, Baloch Saab, सब हाफिज भाई जी खैर सबको सलाम। असल में ये तो मैं अनिल साहब से भी कह रहा था कि अनफॉर्चुनेटली कुछ दिनों से मैं खुद थोड़ा बिजी था, और उसके अलावा ये हमारे वज़ीरिस्तान में भी आपको पता है जहाँ से मेरा ताल्लुक है, बहुत कुछ हो रहा है, और लाइक वो कहते नहीं कि आवर हैंड्स आर फुल। लेकिन जहाँ तक ये रीजन में जो कुछ हो रहा है, स्पेशली आपने बलूचिस्तान की बात की, जो पाकिस्तानी ऑक्युपाइड जिसको आपने कहा, वहाँ पे जो सिचुएशन है, तो डेफिनेटली उसके असरात तो होंगे। और मेरे ख्याल में जो मुझे लग रहा है ओवरऑल कि ये यूथ पॉपुलेशन है, यूथ है जहाँ पर भी है, चाहे वो बलूचिस्तान में हो या पश्तूनों के हों, इवन आप पंजाब में भी देख लें تو یہ لوگ مطلب نکلے ہوئے ہیں آپ فار ایگزامپل پی ٹی آئی کے لوگوں کو اگر آج کل آپ دیکھ لیں پاکستان میں میجارٹی وہاں پر بھی وہاں کیا کہتے ہیں ینگ یوتھ پاپولیشن ہے، اور اس کے علاوہ مطلب آج کل کے جو وہ نعرے لگا رہے ہیں یا جو باتیں کر رہے ہیں وہ اس سے پہلے آپ کو پتہ ہے پی ٹی ایم والے بھی کچھ اسی طرح کے نعرے انہوں نے لگائے آرمی کے خلاف، فوج کے خلاف، اور وہاں پہ سویلین سپریمیسی کے لیے، اور یہ ابھی بھی لوگوں کو پتہ چل رہا ہے. لیکن جہاں تک اس کا کیا ہوگا پاکستان میں، تو میرے خیال میں چیزیں بہت زیادہ کنٹرولڈ ہیں. پاکستان میں تو جو بھی چیزیں ہیں، ایون اگر یہ جو میں نے آپ کو بتایا پی ٹی آئی والوں کا جو وہ ہے بھی جو نیریٹو ہے، یا یہ جو فوج کے خلاف جو باتیں کر رہے ہیں، یا جس کی وجہ سے فوج میں بھی کچھ پریشانی ہوگی کہ وہی لوگ جن پہ الزام تھا کہ فوج ہی کے ٹرین کیے ہوئے لوگ ہیں اور وہ اس پہ بات کر رہے ہیں ان کے خلاف. تو کہنے کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ آئی ڈونٹ تھنک کہ یہ جو ایسی چیزیں مطلب میں مثال دوں گا.
پیر صاحب ایک سوال طالبان کے بارے میں کرنا چاہوں گا. طالبان اور ایران
طالبان پہ میں آتا ہوں. میں اصل میں صرف ایک بات میں اصل میں یہ کوشچن آپ کا بڑا ایک وسیع وہ ہے، تو میں کوشش کر رہا تھا کہ کس طرح اس کو آپ کے کوشچن سے وہ کروں. میں سمپل بات یہ کہنا چاہ رہا تھا کہ دیکھیں سوات میں بہت زیادہ مظاہرے ہوئے وہاں پہ، کیونکہ ان کو پتہ چل گیا کہ کچھ پھر طالبان لائے جا رہے ہیں. یہ بھی نہیں کہ طالبان آ رہے ہیں، انہوں نے موجودگی دیکھی وہاں پہ، لوگوں کو پتہ چل گیا کہ یہ پھر کوئی اور گیم شروع ہو رہی ہے. اب اسی طرح وزیرستان میں، ساؤتھ نارتھ وزیرستان، باجوڑ، سب یہ جگہوں میں یہ ایک چیز ہوئی. اب یہ چیز، اور اس سے پہلے بھی ہم نے ایک ٹویٹر اسپیس پہ یہ بات کی تھی، اب یہ چیز تو ہو جاتی ہے. اب اس کا اسپونٹینیس ہے، اس کو اولسی پاسون پڑھتوں میں کہتے ہیں کہ وہ پیپلز اپرائزنگ، اس کو اگر میں ٹرانسلیٹ کروں تو وہ اپرائزنگ ہے. لیکن وہ اپرائزنگ اس کو اس پولیٹیکل جو اسپونٹینیٹی ہے یا جو وہ جذبہ ہے، اس کو آپ ایک پولیٹیکل ایکشن میں کیسے ٹرانسلیٹ کرتے ہیں، اس کو اپنے حقوق کے حصول کے لیے کیسے استعمال کرتے ہیں، اس کو اپنے ریسورسز پہ اپنے قبضے کے لیے کیسے استعمال کر رہے ہیں، جو بیسک ایشوز ہیں وہ میں نہیں دیکھتا یہاں پہ. کیونکہ باتیں پھر کچھ ایسے لوگ اٹھ جاتے ہیں، پھر ان کو ڈرایا جاتا ہے. پھر اب دیکھیں این پی والوں کے خلاف پھر سردار حسین بابا کی مثال دیکھیں، اس کو کہا گیا ہے کہ ہمارے پاس انٹیلیجنس رپورٹس ہیں کہ آپ کو خطرہ ہے. اب اس سے کوئی پوچھ سکتا ہے کہ یار انٹیلیجنس رپورٹ کہاں سے آتی ہیں، یہ کون بناتا ہے، یہ لوگ ہیں کہاں، یہ کہاں سے آتے ہیں، کیسے. یہ 500 سے زیادہ لوگ ساؤتھ آپ کو پتہ ہے نارتھ وزیرستان میں یوتھ آف وزیرستان کی ایک آرگنائزیشن تھی، ینگ لڑکے تھے، ہم سے بھی ہم انٹرویو کر رہے ہوتے تھے، وہ ایک ایک کر کے انہوں نے مار دیا، ایک بھی نہیں بچا. تو مطلب یہ ہے کہ وہاں پہ مطلب لوگوں میں ہے جذبہ، لوگ نکل آ رہے ہیں، لیکن انجام ان کا پھر یہ. اور پھر جیسے ظفر صاحب نے کہا کہ ہیومن رائٹس آرگنائزیشن جو ہیں آپ کے، ہیومن رائٹس واچ اسلام آباد میں ہے، لیکن ہیومن رائٹس واچ کی آپ رپورٹنگ دیکھیں، ایک رپورٹ آپ مجھے دکھائیں کہ اگر پاکستان پہ انہوں نے رپورٹ لکھی ہو، سب طالبان پہ ہے، سب افغانستان پہ ہے، کیونکہ وہ ایک قسم کا سافٹ سبجیکٹ ہے. ہر کوئی طالبان پہ بولے، بس بولتے رہو آپ طالبان پہ، کسی نے کیا کرنا ہے. آپ اصل ٹاپک پہ مت آؤ، اس پر آپ کو کوئی کچھ بھی نہیں کہے گا. آپ اسلام آباد میں رہیں گے بھی، آپ وہاں سے رپورٹنگ بھی کریں، وہاں سے آپ تنخواہ بھی لیں. تو یہ صرف ہیومن رائٹس واچ کی نہیں، میں ہر ایک آرگنائزیشن کی بات کر رہا ہوں، اور اس کے علاوہ ہر ایک میڈیا آرگنائزیشن کی. آپ دیکھیں رپورٹنگ آپ دیکھیں، ایک نیوز پیپر اٹھا کے دیکھیں کہ یا اس نے گلگت پہ کوئی رپورٹنگ کی ہو، جو اکثر میں رپورٹنگ ہوتی ہے. یہ تو نہیں کہ اچھا. اس کے علاوہ آپ دیکھیں اتنے زیادہ ہوئے، نیو یارک ٹائمز اس کو نہیں کور کر رہا، واشنگٹن پوسٹ اس کو نہیں کور کر رہا، نہیں کور کر رہے کہ فارنرز کو ویزا بڑے مشکل سے ملتا ہے. وہ آتے بھی ہیں تو ان کی کوشش ہوتی ہے کہ جلدی پشاور نہیں جا سکتے. دے نیڈ ٹو ہیو این NOC، نو آبجیکشن سرٹیفکیٹ، جو اس کو کہتے ہیں. بلوچستان، کوئٹہ یہ آؤٹ آف باؤنڈ ہے. تو آپ صرف اسلام آباد، لاہور اور کراچی میں بھی بڑی کنٹرول رپورٹنگ ہے. تو کہنے کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ آئی ڈونٹ سی کہ یہ جو اپرائزنگز اور یہ ہیں یہ دے آر لیڈنگ انٹو سم تھنگ کنکریٹ. تھینک یو.
Thank you so much. I'll go to Nasir Saab now. Nasir Saab, there's not much we see as far as the media reports are concerned the different ethnic groups and different occupied nations within Iran getting help from outside Iran, like from the Western countries, especially from Europe, from the United States and Canada. How do you see that evolving? Do you would you anticipate something like changing, improving in the greater interest of the occupied people? Will there be more support coming in the next few months or years? I mean, we know we're all occupied with Ukraine right now. You know, everybody's talking about Ukraine. Everybody's like writing about Ukraine. There are debates going on in Ukraine. There's not much focus as far as intelligentsia is concerned in the Western nation. How do you see that evolving?
Thank you for the question. I think it's that, as you said, the West, they, of course, they see things from their own kind of interest. And currently, they are very much occupied their mind with Ukraine. And what's happening in Iran is catching their eyes. There are some discussions, but not that much that they will want to change their policy. Because the thing is that the West has not very good experience in recent years after the Cold War, as we can see. People say that the West has large interest in that region. I'm not sure always for that, because if you see in Afghanistan, the West won against the Soviet Union. And at the time I was listening, I think there was kind of discussion between one Russian supporter or Soviet supporter and one American. And they said that we have to come to a conclusion somehow to make sure that the Najib government is intact in Afghanistan. But the Americans said that, I think it was in CNN, our boys had won. That means the Mujahideen had won the war. So they were not in a mood to help the Soviet-backed government that was remaining in Afghanistan at the time. If the West had some interest, they could have changed Afghanistan somehow to make sure that Afghanistan does not come in the hand of those two factions from Mujahideen coming just to fighting in Kabul, later be replaced by Taliban. So I'm not sure always what West in that region. American going to Afghanistan will create this hype that America is going to get the natural resources there. But as we saw in Afghanistan, if you go after 20 years, I don't know what kind of remain of America you see there. 20 years is large time, and they said they have spent $2 trillion. I don't know, $2 trillion in Afghanistan, what they have done there. Have they built any building? Have they built any kind of good road? Or what's happened in Afghanistan those 20 years that America was there? Well, America is involved in the region, but it's a side effect. It's not some kind of policy for America. At the time of the Cold War, it was because of the Soviet Union. It was not to promote democracy or to promote human rights or to promote the help of people. So the understanding that the West will come to rescue, I don't know that. There is another problem. Well, of course, we have to reach out because I was once an American congressman or a senator asked me, why you come and talk to us? I said, well, I would like to go to talk to Chinese, but they don't speak with me. So you are only people that speak with us. The only thing different between West and the countries like China, they would listen to you. They maybe talk to you and they give you some forum to discuss and to be there. But that doesn't mean they would come to help you and to somehow to come and do something for you. At the moment, what is America's, Ukraine is just kind of, again, some kind of side effect, some kind of disturbance for America. But what is their interest is China, and so Chinese see in that region, they want to see what's happening in the future. Because that is what they are concerned about Chinese situation, how they can handle China. Is they going to war with China or going to come to some kind of understanding? That's not sure, because they want to invest in China, make sure that China is a developed country, and then they maybe be the same. But it didn't work that way, because China has its own ambition that does not include West. So there are some differences, but what's happening now, we hope at least. The thing is that that's not only the West's fault. As you see in eastern Balochistan, what's happened there, there was no unity amongst the Baloch leaders. And it's the same in Iran. We have the best political organization in Iranian side amongst the Kurds. In the Kurds region, unity you can see, but there is not that unity you can expect. That was the same thing in Iraqi Kurdistan, but that was the same situation where America had some interest to just get rid of the Saddam. At the time, they united the Kurds, they united even the forces that were pro-Iran, that are now governing in Iraq to some extent, with the communists, with the Kurdish group, and to replace Saddam. There is a Chalabi effect. I don't know if you have heard what's happened in Iraq. Chalabi, who was kind of working with at the same time with Iran, trying to get America to Iraq, and that's a different thing. But we cannot go in details there. But when it's come to Iran, we have this unity amongst the opposition groups, both in the Persian side and the Kurdish side. For instance, last Saturday, there were two demonstrations from the Kurdish. One one is always is like that. Tomorrow is the same. One comment, because there is a large Kurdish community, is about 120 or 130,000 Kurds live in Sweden. So they have two demonstrations the same day, one in the morning and one in the evening, both in the central Stockholm. And last Saturday I went, there was another demonstration. And Friday before that, there was another demonstration. And Sunday, there was another two demonstrations. So the West see these kind of things. And I was talking with him. How you expect West to understand you? You just apply for kind of to hold a demonstration in Stockholm, 3 groups or 4 groups at the same day. They would go to the police in Sweden, and police send those to the Swedish intelligence services. Swedish intelligence services send it to all the European intelligence services, and they send it to the USA, and the same thing in the USA. And you see, there is no unity. When those people who wants to overthrow the regime cannot hold the same demonstration, how they can create a country? What happened in Iraq? What happened in Afghanistan? What happened in Libya could happen here too. And that's the difficulty. It was the same thing for this Balochistan, and the same thing for the others. The problem with us, we do not have capacity to work together. Until we find that capacity to work together, if we find the capacity to work together, we can work within Pakistan, we can work within Iran. We can get our right and change the situation for the future. But we cannot get and unite and does not have capacity to work together, then nobody would look at us. When the West does not come to us, the West, of course, has based on its national interest, will come to us, not based on our interest. And human right, of course, is a good thing to talk about. But human right is not economic right. And the West want economic right. They want to have their kind of free market, and they make sure that their investment give them wins, kind of something for them. And they just not come like that to support us. And that's what's happening in that region. We think that, for me, is that at least we ourselves find the capacity to work together, nobody will come to our help. If somebody comes to our help and we see it as help, but it's not actually help because it cannot help us because we cannot work together. And we cannot work together, so nothing will be helpful. Even if they give us gold, we turn it to something that nobody knows what's happened to that one. So there is a problem with us. That's that we see that we can go to talk to people. We can see there is an interest, there is a support, but actually this is in many people's mind. For instance, yesterday, Macron and Biden talked about the Iranian situation. They say they respect the Iranian youth and women, their courageous uprising and what they are doing for their rights. But what will it materialize besides some kind of statement and then coming to the radio? Of course, it's helpful to some extent that they see that one, but that will not happen anything. I don't think they are going to support morally or practically what's happening there until they find that there is something that can be helpful to them. Because there are another thing that they are afraid. What's happened in Syria, the refugee that came to the Europe. Iran is 3 times larger than Turkey, and it could have more impact in the region. So they are afraid again, if something happens in Iran, if things disintegrate more than that, there will be another refugee influx from Iran towards the European countries. So there are many things they are considering, not only one thing. And that makes it that very difficult for them. When you don't see it in the news media here, unfortunately, they see the national minority situation kind of destabilizing force. We, of course, argue that the thing is that in that region, they say sometimes it will become a Balkanization. Balkanization in itself was not really bad because it was for a short period. And now we are independent and democratic countries to some extent in that region. The thing is that we have to come to say that, well, it perhaps will create some disturbances for a small time, for a short period, but in longer run, it's best for the region. Otherwise, we always have this anxiety. And Middle East is in the middle of this war in kind of Southeast Asia and Southeast Asia and Eurasia and Africa and Europe itself. So here, if you have the peace and everybody is satisfied with their life, it would be much easier for the business, for the trade, and for everything else. Only human right, it doesn't work. It's good for discussion. It's good to talk about the people's feeling because everybody would not say that we are going there to take the oil. Do you say we are going to implement human right and not universal human right? That's a different thing. But we have to come with a better argument. We have to make a better case for us, and then I think we will get much more support. And that's the problem that we have currently. Of course, the national minorities in Iran, all the media, the Persian media dominated by the Iranian centrists, and they are supported by the British, the BBC, the Voice of America, or Iran International, that people say financed by the Saudi Arabia. They're actually on the hand of the Iranian centrists. And the Persian media, they are very nationalistic. Most of the people that are working those, they have been previously working with the Iranian government to some extent as a reformist or has been educated there, and they belong to some extent to, during the Shah's time, journalists from that time. And there are people who have been from kind of Iranian, you could say those that think that the Persian language is the, I don't know, the best language and everybody has to learn it. And they are kind of chauvinistic, social chauvinistic or national chauvinistic idea. They dominate those media. So the media that we have, for instance, everybody knows that most of the people that come out in Iran belongs to the national minorities, particularly the Kurds and Baloch. And previously they were mostly Arabs. But they are not getting the same attention because we don't have this big good media to get our message across, both in written way and as a spoken media like the TV or a newspaper or anything else. And that's the problem. Always, I mean, when they come to the Swedish TV, you watch, or your BBC, they talk about what's happened mostly in Tehran. They maybe mention Balochistan or Kurdish region, but only they mention that most of the people that have been killed are from this region. They do not talk why more Baloch and Kurds are being killed. And that's the problem.
Thank you, Nasrullah Sahab. I have a quick question for Pir Subesha. Pir Sahab, how do you see the uprising in Iran? What's going on over there? And how do you see the future? And do you think it's going to, these all protests which is going on in Western Balochistan, I mean, the whole over in Iran, it's going to be these all protests, these are going for a political change or regional change. How do you see that as a journalist? Please.
Thank you, Member Sahab. Actually, as I mentioned before, I see it as, mostly youth coming out. Of course, they want change. And in Iran's case, it looks like that people are fed up. And also, Iran is like different in the sense that it gets more attention and more coverage as compared to, for example, some parts of Pakistan or even for that matter, Balochistan. Because it's a big story here in the US too, like Iranian and the US playing soccer the other day, it was like huge thing. So there is this history, and then there is this, of course, related to that is the regional politics is also going on, in the Middle East, especially with what's going on with Russia and the Ukraine, and the Iran and Russia nexus and the Saudis. So a lot is going on, and I think earlier Sangisab asked the same sort of question that what will be the impact here on the Taliban or in Afghanistan. And I mean, Afghanistan has already been, lost, and it's like under total Pakistani control now. So I don't think it will have much impact there as such. Although people in Afghanistan, inside in Afghanistan, people, those we saw people are coming out. The youth there are coming out too, even if they are women, even if they are girls. We see women protests, and we see many women coming out, going to schools in many areas. Might not necessarily we might not necessarily hear about. But again, I don't think like that Iran. I'm not sure, and I'm not really like focusing that much on that how long they will be able to sustain these protests. I'm sure like the Iranians, the one journal said that at least 300 people have been killed, like have died. I'm sure the numbers will be higher. So they are like using force. And then we saw, like, for that matter, now we see what's going on in China now. That's another big story. So, yeah, in terms of, I mean, impact in terms of like people asking, seeking their rights, yeah, there will be uprisings going on. And because, as I said, it's a huge youth, especially in Pakistan, if we see like you have 68% of the population is below the age of 29. So this is like a huge youth bulge. So it has to come out in one way. And I think Pakistan is doing very good job in controlling those sentiments or directing them towards issues which might not be necessarily beneficial to them, but at least to keep them busy, I mean. So I think the Iranians, as I said, I don't know how long they will be able to sustain these protests, but this time it looks like these are huge. It's not like ordinary protests, and if they were able to sustain it, then it might result in some change. I don't think it will be very easy. It might be possible if they sustain these protests.
Thank you, Peer Saab. Tariq Fateh is with us. Tariq, you've been a great supporter and fighter of Baloch freedom movements both on the eastern and western side. The Baloch nation has great respect for you. You have written for them. You have spoken for them. You have gone to jail talking about their rights. We are talking about Western Balochistan today and how it is going to impact um, the freedom movement on the eastern side as well. What would be your take on it?
Well, I don't think without proper leadership you can accomplish anything. And I've noticed that even in more traditional eastern Balochistan, where there has been some sort of resistance for the last 75 years, the unity of leadership in the 70s or 80s or even later on, it doesn't exist. People are scattered. This observation that people are young, I don't think it matters. I helped a few young Baloch to come to Canada, and they don't seem to be interested in any issue that requires leadership. I know some of the leaders, and they can't sit together. The only way this moved in the past was that there were certain Baloch leaders on the left, like Rukhan Nasir, Umid Bazinjo, who introduced, or even Kermash Murray to an extent, were politically aware of the post-Second World War situation and internationally. I don't see that in the Baloch of today, and I see them scattered around. There's a lack of commitment. So one can't even get a unified approach as to who died, who killed whom.
Are you trying to say that they need to get their act together because there's something big happening on the Iranian side, and the Pakistani, they need to unite. They need to work together, and
Well, on the Iranian side, the dynamics are different because the Baloch are a Sunni group and so they are condemned to a third-class status. There are other dynamics that apply to Sunni citizens of Iran. You have to understand there isn't a Sunni mosque in all of Tehran. So the Baloch are seen, or the Turkmens are seen as the, what is the Persian word they use for as a racial slur? Siah is the word they use. People who are on the coast or on the Baloch area. And there's a religious dimension in Iran. You cannot replicate that in Pakistan, in which it is Pakistan invasion of the state of Kalat had very little to do with religion and had more to do with the interests of the United States at that time to make sure that the Red Army post 45 would not encroach into the Persian Gulf area. So they had both Mossadegh removed from Iran, and in Pakistan they set up the Diyarbakir air base, and in Balochistan they eliminated any semblance of left-wing Baloch leadership, because right up to maybe a decade ago, most of the Baloch leadership was left of center. Whether it was even those that are the BAP, or whether it we're talking of Manzoor Kishki and his, group of fellows, but we don't have that maturity of leadership anymore. And it's a scattered effort. So unless there is some effort to affect change or build public opinion, you can't handle this. Who's going to help you? Times have gone by, and Baloch have not been able to influence the public opinion at any place in any Western country. I've never seen a lobbying of anyone done successfully anywhere, whether it is in Afghanistan, or whether it's in India, or whether it is the United States or Canada, where a fair number of Baloch live. I don't think it's anyone's concern to discuss this. So people just.
What's your opinion on Dr. Allah Nazar? Is he somebody we can look forward to leading the Baloch nations?
Well, we don't have to look or not look. We are not part of this, equation. He's fighting a different war, and we are the bookkeepers who behave as if he doesn't even exist. You have a lack of relationship between, say, people like the Mingle on one side, or his, brother, or these people who are from Makran. The Pakistanis have very successfully created the divisions that could be done, and sucked out the national movement, and very soon. I mean, if the mullahs can gather 200,000 people in Gwadar, you lost the war. You can't get any Baloch nationalist to get 10 people in Toronto. I was shocked to see Iranian Baloch were very reluctant to stand with Pakistani Baloch, because the Iranians thought they were more, perhaps, good-looking and more blonde than Pakistan. I witnessed it with my own eyes. Nobody wanted to stand with the Baloch who were there. I think Zafar will bear me out. The other friends with me here in the car where I am sitting. And the Iranians didn't think anything. They thought they were with some inferior people. So that has carried on. And I don't think there's a national movement in Iran. I may be wrong. But it is a religious movement. It is the same with Sunnis not having any rights. And if they associated themselves with Pakistan, anything Pakistani, that's like a devaluation. So they do not consider themselves Pakistanis or Pakistani Baloch to be worthy of, you know, being considered equal.
Tariq, would you say that a more democratic, more open Iran would bring some kind of dividends for the Pakistani occupied Balochistan? Would there be a direct, link to that?
I don't think so. I think there's a level of arrogance within any of the communities of Iran who really do not think that anything east of the Durand line is respectful. Nobody comes to Pakistan. Even if they go to Pakistan, they're not really. If they go to India to study, many of the Baloch or the Kurds of Iran, they're very happy to say they're in India, but they're quite embarrassed to say they're in Pakistan. So there is a perspective which says that, why do we have to, associate with these people? Because there's a level of racism that goes both ways. And Punjab is by default Pakistan is a Punjabi ruled state in which the dominating power is ashamed of its own mother tongue and its own culture. So we have some bizarre scores to settle or to explain or to, to just make people understand. We don't have the quality of people like Bashmari who studied in Lahore and put his foot down when it mattered because he was a Marxist. And he studied what was materialistic history or what was historical materialism, and he had a sense of humor. He knew what he was talking about. You don't have that level today. I think there's an element of the way, for example, how Karima Baloch is used after her death as a martyr tells me a lot about the bankruptcy of the Baloch movement. That you should never have to lie or create a martyr simply by saying that we have a martyr. So Karima Baloch was killed by the Pakistanis. Many of us know why she committed suicide. But it is really unethical and immoral to use a dead person's memory for your own political cause. And they are doing it. I keep hearing this all the time.
Tariq, you live in Canada. Let's talk a little bit about the Western Hemisphere and their regimes. We just had G20. We're having a lot of conversation on Ukraine. What is Canadian government doing about what's going on in the Iranian occupied Balochistan or the Kurdistan area? I mean, I don't hear a lot of from the Canadian government.
Why would the Canadian government bother when no Baloch is bothered? How would this happen? Like, I went out of my way to put the Minister of Citizenship in touch with some Baloch leaders, and the Canadian member at the United Nations, former Premier Bob Rae, he was in touch with a lot of Baloch, but they cannot formulate a vision for what is the issue here. Is Balochistan, do they say, Pakistan occupied Balochistan? I don't see that mentioned in any conversation. The way every Baloch's last name is Baloch is like a joke to me. Will you have a telephone directory in which there will be just one letter B? People, I've been begging people to have at least their last name's clarity when they meet someone. I remember one time when in Geneva where the guy asked, "Are you all related?" I said, "No." Well, I hate people with the same last name and you're not related to each other. सुनते नहीं हैं. So as long as you are unable to understand what is possible and what is not possible, and eat your ego, swallow it, and consider it non-existent, you're not be able to move an inch. I mean, I wish I was, Baloch. I could then play to the nth level. But
Well, we would say you have done a lot more than ordinary Baloch would do. I mean, you have done a lot for them.
No, usko jaane dein. The point is that people have to act together, whether it is Akhtar Mengal or Javed Mengal or, Mehran Mari or his brother. I mean, for crying out loud, can't you just have a visionary statement that we, the Baloch, declare or something like that? Is it that difficult a thing to formulate and get consensus on what is going to be the constitution of the future Balochistan? What is stopping people from doing that? Float it around, give it a draft, send it to others. I think we did made one attempt, and in which there was a lot of confusion, and perhaps I don't understand the dynamics of what to say when in the way the Baloch handle their politics. But if you don't have a vision statement, what are you fighting for? If people don't know what is British Balochistan and what is the state of Kalat, or what is the real story behind the invasion of Kalat, do we call that Balochistan or do we call British Balochistan as Balochistan? But then, what is Lasbela? Why it is the other states that Pakistan was able to persuade to get out from under the Nawab Khan of Kalat and declare themselves in Lasbela, and was it near Havara, near Pasni, I think. This was in the 40s, late 40s and early 50s. Now, we have scholarly books by some very well-educated Baloch. We don't have a textbook. I don't remember why I stopped, but I had planned it out and I was about to publish a book. A basic textbook as to what is Balochistan, what is the freedom struggle for, where does this language come from? All those things have to be explained if you're going to sit with a member of
Tariq Shah of Iran played a huge role in the reversal of the freedom of Baloch. I mean, when Balochistan was declared an independent country on 11th of August, and then Shah. How do you see that? Because the future of Iran looks like there will be a lot more influence of Shah in the coming years.
No, there won't be. This is just one guy's showmanship and lost glories of an empire. Nobody in Iran is fighting for the Shah to come back. That's hocus pocus. I mean, just imagine if that is what the Iranians want. Certainly the Baloch of Iran do not desire kingmanship. Even MDS doesn't want, he has become the prime minister of Saudi Arabia. People have woken up and are, trying to get out of medievalism into what is essentially a nation state.
Nasir, I'm going to come to you and get a response from, Tariq has put a lot in our plate right now. How do you respond to that, Nasir?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Sorry for coming late. Well, thank you very much. I'm very happy to hear Mr. Tariq after some time. That was I think, a very good statement. I agree to most of his point, particularly about that we Baloch lack vision and unity. As I said, when we lack capacity to unite, there is no help can help us. If you give us a goal, it becomes nothing for us because we are not united. You have to pick up the goal and create something from that one, either to use it or sell it, I don't know, to spend it somehow, or to invest it. If you don't have the vision, you cannot do anything with that one. And that's what's happening in the Baloch region. And it's the same thing for the other, as I said. In the Kurdish region is the same thing. Even the Kurds in KRG, if it wasn't for America, they would not have even the simple kind of semi-independent. And they tried, they couldn't achieve it because there was this unity between the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan and other Kurdish parties. As I said, here in Stockholm, when you go out in there, even in Stockholm, which is you see 3 demonstrations from the Kurdish group. Who in his right mind going to help that community, even if they are organized? They have several parties. They have, they can go on to speak in the Swedish Parliament or the European Parliament anytime they want. But the thing is that but they are not going to put any investment out. So that's the problem, and that was why I sometimes say why we should go and be killed for something that we don't know. Simply being Macroni, as you said, and being I don't know from that hill areas doesn't make you a Baluch. Just simply to say that I'm a Macrani and I'm a middle class, and I've questioned this middle class notion in Balochistan. People say that we are middle class, and the rest I said, well, who is your bourgeoisie here that you are middle class, and who is your worker that you are middle class to whom? So there is no different understanding of the real situation of our society, and that's a problem. But the thing is that at the last, the thing that become hectic, as you said, I mean, if you can come, I don't know, to say that this son of the Shah or former Shah is one-man show, as Tariq said. He has been incapable even putting together a coalition. He have put, I think, in just last a few years, 3. All of them have split because they also don't like. I mean, everybody can create a government with an army. The Shah had a government with an army, but when the people came out and that army didn't know what to do, because Shah himself was asking his assistant or his council, his peer, people that were his ministers or anybody, what America think, what the British think. He was more interested in what the embassy of America say or embassy of the British say than what his own people say around him. So the thing is that in that region we have this problem, and that's a big problem. How you can create some kind of situation there. And as he was saying, that's in Iranian side. Well, of course, we have. Of course, I do not agree that totally is the kind of religious dimension in the Balochistan in Iran. There is this religious dimension. But there is, I mean, if people talk about how many people came to demonstration, how many people went to the mosque in Zaidan, and about at least 500,000 Baluch living there, or maybe more. And there are only 40,000 goes to the mosque, and the rest are not going. The thing is that mullahs are much more kind of they have much more support within Iran and outside. As one of the Iranians said, that we have supported these mullahs, and there are documents how the Shah supported the mullahs against the communism and the tribal leader to create another kind of I don't know, somebody that can play in the society, this divide and rule. So this has always part of that region, and this is unfortunate. But how the things have been working both in the eastern side and the western
Zafar,
side.
I'm going to come to you now. Do you have any response to all these comments that have come forward in the last 10-15 minutes?
Thank you. I think that we drifted a little bit away from what's happening in Western Balochistan, and there were certainly other issues over there that needed to be addressed at the same time. But we should not forget, like throughout the discussion we had, it's very clear that whether it's Eastern Balochistan or the Western Balochistan, they are both occupied territories. And they are controlled and occupied by a brutal state. And that brutal state, at some point, is completely related to what the US, the British, or the French had policies of colonization or control in the region, whether it's part of the Middle East or part of the South Asia. We see that these countries, these superpowers, always had their interests before democracy or democratic rights of the people or the human rights or whatever. The problem with the Baluch politics and its history, there are many aspects to it that are very unique and very admirable. And I think that they have, for a very long time, been the most powerful, the most clear secular force in the region. especially when it comes to Eastern Balochistan. And the same goes for the Western Balochistan as well, if we go throughout its history. So the religious phenomenon in Western Balochistan is very much recent. It's not like a part of its 100 years history. It's a reaction to the Shia state that was formed like in 1979, and then the reaction to that, we see more of Sunni movements developing because of the repression of the belief system in Western Balochistan. But otherwise, the nationalism is very much there, and I think that the Baloch from both sides have a very long history of a secular and left-leaning political ideologies following them. And that was one reason why the Baloch were never trusted. If you look into the Eastern Balochistan's political parties, their leadership, you just name any from top. You go back to the youth, you go back to the BSO, the Balochistan organization, all you see is left and the left-leaning ideologies, the Marxism, the Marxist following. This is something that the West would never ever listen to. Like Pakistan always, and East Iran at the same time, they both used this for their benefit. And they said, look, these are the people. If you let them go as an independent nation tomorrow, they are going to be a satellite state of the Soviet Union. This is what they always did in Pakistan. The Reds are coming to power, so give us more weapons, give us more money so that we can crush them. And all of that was in Balochistan. Throughout the Pakistan 70 years history, you'll see that. Whenever they dissolve a parliament, they dismiss a government, they put a ban on a political organization and parties, the big flag comes, oh, the Reds are coming. So the same thing they tried to do in Afghanistan when Afghanistan became, like there was a organization that came into power over there without having mass roots and followings. So in Kabul, they were very comfortable. Then they needed the Soviet support. I don't want to go into all that details, but that changed the dynamics of the region at the same time. And the old, the game, the great game, became the new great game. And China became a new partner into all that. So there is a kind of an international situation over here. But I think, and I believe, I have strong faith and commitment that Baloch as a nation are a survivor, and they have fought bravely in different conditions, different scenarios, and they will come up, and they will, in the end, be victorious, no matter what. They don't have any choice. The rest of what if we don't come out as winners, we don't exist anymore.
Zafar, we have a question from Balochistan. आप सवाल कीजिए अपना और हम कोशिश करेंगे कि तारिक साहब से इसका जवाब ले लें.
Yes, and also I am talking about what Tariq said. First of all, my regard to all in this space. Second is that I am thankful from Tariq whatever you did for Balochistan, but sometimes I have seen that through some spaces previously that you are saying something about Balochistan without understanding exactly what is the problem. And as you know, Mr. Tariq, we have lack of communication between Balochistan people and Balochistan parties, and same time lack of weapons, and also not getting help from international communities, and also whatever Mr. Zafar said, the international players like French, London, Washington, all these pressures are on us, and now we are slave. What is my point? Giving advice is good, and criticizing something is good, but not understanding it exactly where is the problem. It's not good to say something that we have no unity or we don't talk each other or things like that. I am really disappointed whatever Mr. Tariq said,
please try to understand our point, and I hope that next time, inshallah, you will think about this more. And thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया बलोच वाजा आपने हाथ खड़ा किया है सोहराब आप अपना क्वेश्चन कीजिए फिर हम तारिक की तरफ जाएंगे वाजा सोहराब आपका कोई सवाल है जी तारिक kindly respond to these questions if you want otherwise we can I can ask you another question that pertains to the women issues in Balochistan.
I didn't understand what was the concern expressed by the previous speaker. I couldn't figure out what he was not criticizing, but what he was saying that I should correct my approach.
So, Tarik, let me bring forward a question. I mean, we see, Afghan women getting a shot in arm from what they see what's going on in Iran and Iran-occupied areas in Kurdistan, Balochistan, and do you see a change there, in Afghanistan in the coming years? Not just because of the women that they are in the street right now protesting, but also because Taliban and Iranian regime used to be allies, and there will be a change of regime, hopefully, and Taliban might like to, recorrect itself and recalibrate. How do you see that?
I'm going back to the previous question. I just want to know what exactly was the critique that I don't even know who it was that was speaking because I was in a car. Can you simply, whoever it was,
I think that person has left. We have more questions coming from Wajah Sohrab, Wajah Sami.
Can you tell me what was his objection? What he was saying? Because there's no point in having a discussion where we are just filling in time.
I think he was trying to say that, Baloch are doing their best. There's no support from the international community. There is unity among Baloch, and Baloch are making progress.
I said that he was objecting to. What was the position that...
He was objecting to you saying that Baloch do not have unity.
So, does anyone else believe that that's not true? Is there someone here who believes that there is, among the many political parties that exist in Pakistan, Balochistan, that there is unity?
Zafar, do you want to chime in?
Yes, sir, it is true that we are not united. We as a Baloch, we are not united. This 100%.
So what was the objection? Again, there's no point. That is why I was a bit reluctant to come to the discussion, because you don't take into any conclusion. You're either just filling in time to feel that yes, we had a discussion, but we don't know what we discussed. So, if somebody had a critique, this is, just 1 second, sir. That I'm in someone's home.
Can I come in?
Zafar, yes, please go ahead, chime in, Zafar. Please go ahead.
Permission of Sange and Tarik Fateh.
Zafar, please go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Tarik.
Yeah.
My point is that, again, I want to elaborate on this, that Balochistan, I'm talking about Eastern Balochistan now, has seen a very large scale political unity, political organization, all kinds of leadership sitting together, forming a single platform, single organization like NAP, like Tarik mentioned before, and winning the elections in 1972, forming the government. What else can we say about such great unity of great leaders?
I'll tell you, Zafar, let me respond.
No, I haven't finished yet.
Mr. Bhutto used Sardar Bhukti.
Look,
Can
I finish? Can I finish?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So even if he used whatever was not part or left out from the Baloch unity at that time. But even then, the Baloch unity was strong enough to form a government, and there were great people in the government. But the state and the supporters, the international supporters, so-called from Iran or Shah of Iran or US or whatever, had the same idea about Baloch and the Baloch movement and the Baloch leadership that these people are communists. That's it, period. It's the buck stopped there. And they have to be removed. Bhutto used that, and he, with the support of the US, destroyed the democratic setup in Balochistan, dismissed the government, put a ban on NAT, and throughout Pakistan, the political opposition was denied any rights. It was put off. And what happened, what Bisinjo said at that time to Bhutto, was that now, today, you are, to Bhutto, he said that by banning a democratic opposition in Pakistan, you are paving way, opening the way to the military and Jamaat Islami. And his vision was perfectly correct. That's exactly what happened. And then military and Jamaat Islami formed the military mullah alliance, and that ruled in the form of Ziaullah. So this is what happened.
Just a second. Why
Yes.
are we excluding discussion of what Sardar Akbar Bukti did during that time?
Look, that Tariq, even if Sardar Bukti was not part of that coalition at that time,
No,
that
it
coalition
was
had a
not-
strong backing of the people of Balochistan. It had.
Let's not discuss it. Keep me out of it. Because he toppled
Okay,
the government.
so okay.
And his problem was that he said that I am not a member of the National Army Party, yet I will
Right.
sit in the committee and speak. And some people objected, so he
Right.
took revenge and brought down
Okay.
Ataulah's government and became the Governor General and everything. And I remember what his son did by throwing tribesmen outside the Balochistan government of Ataullah Mengal and keeping people hostage. It wasn't the Pakistan army who did it. It was Salim Bukti and his tribe that did it.
Okay, so that's something that happened in Balochistan. I want to take you back to what happened in Bangladesh. In Bangladesh, Mujibur Rahman was a great leader. Over there, the Bengali nation was not numerically a small nation. They had formed a government. They won the elections. They were united. And what happened over there?
It was same
How
Mr.
the-
Bhutto who did it.
Of course.
Yeah,
So and the military, without the power of Pakistani military. That's what I'm
Zafar,
saying.
if you
Yeah.
are unable to critique the catastrophe that Akbar Bukti committed on Balochistan, then let us not discuss anything about Balochistan.
Now, what I'm saying is that Akbar Bukti
Zafar, are you trying to say that, you know, every nation, Zafar, are you trying to
is
say
not a big power in the state system of Pakistan?
What do you mean he was not a
Pakistan
great
is.
power? He became the governor of Balochistan.
So did Bisinjo.
What?
Bisinjo
No,
did the majority.
Bisinjo was not the governor. Bisinjo was
I still believe that Pakistani army is the biggest stakeholder and the power.
Yeah, छोड़ो ना, फिर
Pakistani
जाने
state.
दो फिर.
Yeah, yeah.
Zafar,
So
then
if you want to bring
Tariq, do you want to come back to my question about the transformation in Afghanistan and how Taliban will recalibrate themselves if there is a more democratic setup in Iran?
Look, I can come to that, but if we are unwilling to speak the truth, even amongst ourselves, then there's no point. You know how many people have cashed in on Karima Baloch's supposed assassination by the Pakistanis? And it is a moral, ethical crime for all those who know that she committed suicide, but to act as if she was assassinated. You don't win revolutions by lying to the people. And this is not fair. Domestic abuse of a young woman is being turned into अब तो मर गई अब उसको शहीद बना दो. She came to Canada at my intervention. I know she used to visit us. I know the background of how she was treated by her own family, and she committed suicide. And then we decided, no, suicide will not look good. Let's say that the Pakistanis murdered her.
Tariq, we'll find some other day to talk about that issue, but can we come back to Western Balochistan? So, you have such an amazing, this wealth of knowledge about this region that we would like to benefit from.
Yeah, but it cannot apply. The problem of Western Balochistan is that it is not a Baloch Persian conflict. They have identified you as the Sunni Muslim who needs to be eliminated. They are black turban because they consider themselves as the rightful heirs to Prophet Muhammad. And no white turban man can be the ruler of Iran because you have to be an Arab to be the ruler of Iran. I don't think many people know that. The constitution states that you have to be a black turban to be the supreme leader. And the black turban means you have to be from the Quraysh and the sub-tribe of the Hashimis to be the ruler of Iran. No Persian can be supreme leader of Iran. This is what we are fighting because in Iran or Western Balochistan, the fight involves religion. In Pakistan-occupied Balochistan, the fight does not involve religion, at least not yet. So if Western Balochistan does not have an answer to the God-given right of the Ayatollahs to rule over the Baloch people or the Turkmen or the Siah people who are Sunnis, or consider themselves as Saudi agents, then we have a different fight on our hands.
Would you support a demand from the Baloch and the Kurd to have a no-fly zone over their territories within Iranian-occupied territories?
They can't implement that, so it will be just a hollow defeat. They don't have the power to stop no-fly, and nobody needs a no-fly zone. You don't even know that Iran is supplying rockets to Russia in Ukraine. They have another zeal to implement, and their history goes back to the uprooting of the Fatimid dynasty in Egypt. We don't think that way, but their memories operate that way. Saladin threw out the Fatimid dynasty, of which then most people had to settle down in India, and that revenge stays in the mind of the Iranian clergy, who considers that as the ultimate crime in their heritage. They associate with the Fatimids of Egypt, just as Hezbollah associates with Iran, even though one is Arab and the other is Persian. So if we refuse to understand or analyze or sit down and say, given these are the circumstances, how do we address this issue?
Excuse me, Mr. Tariq, excuse me. I know that your knowledge is very good. You have general knowledge for everything. But I think you become old, you have to keep quiet a little more. And
this
you don't know.
This is what I have to deal with. But now you understand? Yeah. This is
No,
the
you
same
are
gentleman who banned.
No, Mr. Baloch, you cannot do personal attacks, sir.
No,
you cannot. No, you cannot. This is not appropriate.
Sir,
Let's go to Baja Sohrab. Baja Sohrab, do you have any questions? Baja Sohrab.
He lost his memory, and whatever he's saying, just old knowledge is just mentioning like this. He don't know anything.
Yes.
Mr. Tariq, please don't interfere in the Pakistan.
Good night. You take care and serve the Pakistanis. You will benefit.
Okay, Tariq, Tariq has left. Okay. Tariq, what's happening? Tariq, are you reconnecting? Pir Zubair Shah, I want to come back to you because, we have talked a lot about this issue, and I want to reconnect it with the women movement that is going on in Iran and Irani-occupied parts and how it helps the women in Afghanistan. I think this is a really important issue that I would like you to say something about, Pir Zubair Shah. Will there be any concessions from Taliban? Because the Taliban are feeling the heat. There's a lot of changes going on in Iran, and that could spill over in Afghanistan. So do you see a change in Afghanistan in the coming months and years? Mirza Barsha.
Actually, I don't think, the Taliban, the Afghan women are already, whoever, like the number, their number is, whatever the number is, they are protesting, and we saw that the Taliban regime came very harsh on them. And now I think this is huge what's going on in Iran, but I don't think it will. Get more people inspired, because the women already, whoever they are already inspired and they are protesting. And I don't think the Taliban will. It will be such a huge in Afghanistan that it will force Taliban to change. And also Taliban, I don't think Taliban are that much in control of the things as we people outside think, or people are made to believe that the Taliban are an independent group, and there is a lot of influence, Pakistani influence over them, and there is a lot of factionalism within Taliban. The Haqqani network is a separate group than the Kandahar Shura, Mullah Yaqub and others.
Let me ask you a direct question. Now that we see General Faz Hamid leaving, do you see that the other group, the group which is opposed to this group that was aligned with General Hamid's idea of the ruling philosophy in Afghanistan, do you think there will be any chance of the schools opening for the girls in the coming months and years?
As I said, like the Taliban, you saw Hina Rabbani Kar was in Kabul day before yesterday, and the Taliban had no problem meeting her, a woman, and receiving her and welcoming her. So I think it's not like more an ideological issue. As I said, in a lot of in eastern Afghanistan, people have come out. There are people who have taken their daughters to school, in protest and in solidarity. So I don't think it's more a religious or cultural resistance, more like a political thing. I don't know what do they want to accomplish through it. Maybe yes. If the stakes were really raised for the Taliban on around girls' education, and it looks like they also want and they need business. So yes, but it will depend on and a lot of international pressure, a lot of tools. For example, you remember when the UN they were giving that waiver to some of the travel waiver. They didn't lift the waiver on the Taliban, the Minister for Higher Education, because he was one of the persons involved in banning the girls from school. So these things, like these leverages, these tools, if they are used consistently and appropriately at every level, then it might force the Taliban. For example, if their travels are restricted, if their movement is restricted, if their funds, the leadership funds are confiscated or jammed in Qatar, in wherever they have, so it might work. But I don't think it will work in the way that the Iranian women have risen and then the Afghan women rise and it forced the Taliban to do it to win hearts and minds. I think it will be a political decision based on a lot of pressure from the Western countries, especially the US.
I think it makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for that valuable analysis. Now we go to Sami Baloch and Waja Sohrab in Baloch National League. Sami Baloch, do you have a question, sir?
Yes, Mr. Sange, I have a quick question. First of all, I don't know. Someone is coming there talking about discussing or something with the Mr. Tariq Fateh. You people have checked who is coming in the back ID. I don't know. I have a quick question with Dr. Zafar. Please answer my question, Dr. Zafar. My question is the doctor. क्वेश्चन इज डॉक्टर बलूचिस्तान में सूरत हाल जो अभी चल रहा है, जो हमारी स्ट्रेटजी है, जो तरीक़ाकार है, वी आर कंट्री आई एम ड्राइविंग एक्चुअली, तो اسی طرح ہمارے اسٹریٹجی چلتے رہیں گے یا اس میں کچھ تبدیلی آئے گی؟ ڈاکٹر صاحب میرا کوئی کوشچن ہے آپ سے.
Hello. Hello.
Zafar, please go ahead.
Okay. Sanjay.
Go ahead.
Okay. The problem یہ ہے کہ اس کا پاکستان کا جو تضاد ہے بلوچستان کے اندر، پاکستانی ریاست کا جو بلوچ قوم کے ساتھ تضاد ہے، اس تضاد کے پس منظر کو، اس کے تاریخی پس منظر کو اور اس کے سیاسی پس منظر کو سامنے رکھتے ہوئے ہم یہ بات کہہ سکتے ہیں کہ یہاں پر کوئی بہتری آنے والی نہیں ہے. اور جس طرح سے ہم نے ڈسکس کیا کہ ماضی میں کس طرح سے سچویشن ایک پولیٹیکل موومنٹ سے لے کے آج تک پچھلے 70 سال کے اندر جتنے بھی طریقہ کار، جتنے بھی پرامن پارلیمانی راستے اور کانسٹیٹیوشنل راستے جتنے بھی اختیار کیے گئے، چاہے وہ بلوچستان میں کیے گئے ہوں یا ایسٹ پاکستان اس وقت تھا اس میں کیے گئے ہوں، ان سب کا جو آخری انجام تھا وہ یہ تھا کہ ریاست کا جو جبر ہے اس میں کسی بھی قسم کی کمی نہیں آئی، بلکہ ریاست نے اپنی غالبانہ اور اپنی جو ملٹری ہے، جو اس کا ایک بہت بڑا غاصبانہ کردار ہے اور ایک کولونیل آرمی کے طور پہ وہ ایکٹ کرتا ہے، وہ کمپلیٹ کنٹرول چاہتا ہے سوسائٹی پر اور اسٹیٹ پہ. اس چیز کے ہوتے ہوئے جیسے میں نے پہلے بھی یہ عرض کیا کہ بلوچ اگر اپنے سارے رائٹس سرنڈر کریں، سارے رائٹس پولیٹیکل، اکنامک، سارے معاشی سب کچھ سرنڈر کریں، تب بلوچستان کے اندر کسی قسم کے امن آنے والا نہیں ہے. اس کے بعد جو جینوسائڈ ہوگا وہ ایگزیکٹلی اس کی وہی شکل ہوگی جو بنگلہ دیش میں ہوئی ہے. اور اس لیے میں کہہ رہا ہوں یہ کہ اگر آپ یہ امید رکھتے ہیں کہ ریاست کا جو رویہ ہے بلوچوں کی طرف یا بلوچستان کے حوالے سے اس میں کوئی تبدیلی آئے گی، وہ نہیں ہوگی، وہ نہیں آ سکتی، کیونکہ یہ ریاست کا جو جبری پروگرام ہے، جو اس کی پالیسی ہے، پچھلے 70 سال سے ہے اور اسی بنیاد پر چل رہی ہے. اور اس جگہ کے ہوتے ہوئے بلوچ اپنے رائٹس کو سرنڈر کبھی بھی نہیں کریں گے اور ریزسٹنس کرتا رہے گا. اس صورتحال کے اندر جو بلوچ ہیومن رائٹس وہاں پر پامال ہو رہے ہیں، جو بلوچ جو انفورس ڈسپیرنسز ہو رہے ہیں، جو ایکسٹرا جوڈیشل کلنگ اور میسیکر ہو رہے ہیں، یہ ان چیزوں کو روکنے کا کوئی اور راستہ بلوچوں کے پاس کم از کم نہیں ہے. بلوچوں کے پاس وہ سیاسی اختیار ہی نہیں ہے کہ اس کو روک سکیں، وہ اپنے رائٹس کو سرنڈر نہیں کریں گے. ٹھیک ہے، تو اس کا نتیجہ جو ہے وہ یہ آئے گا کہ یا تو انٹرنیشنل کمیونٹی کو انٹروین کرنا پڑے گا، یونائٹیڈ نیشن کو انٹروین کرنا پڑے گا اور جا کے اس کو روکنا پڑے گا، یا یہ ریاست اپنے منطقی انجام کو پہنچ کے ختم ہو جائے گی. اس کے علاوہ اور کوئی تیسرا راستہ نہیں ہے. تھینک یو.
واجد سہراب، آپ کوئی سوال کرنا چاہیں گے؟ آپ بہت دیر سے انتظار کر رہے ہیں. اس کے بعد پھر میں ناصر صاحب کی طرف جاؤں گا. We'll try to wrap it up.
Thank you, thank you. And my question will be, Wajah Zafar Tarawja Salam. Mani Baki Braso, Mani Baki Baki da Duranishtiga. My question will be through Zafar Dev, Wajah Zafar Dev. What is his strategy to bring all political parties together and to find a way for Balochistan independence, and how we can connect those diaspora with the ground separatists, and to build a bridge that Balochistan independence movement go more smoothly. And I will piggyback another question. Those other nationals, they are sitting in Balochistan. How we can convince them to be part of our this national freedom? They at the end they also have to live with us in Balochistan too. Balochistan is also their same way as we consider Balochistan as our only home. And is there something we are working on to work collectively for independence of Balochistan?
Okay, Wajah Sohrab, بعض واشنگتن شنے کوشچن بعض سیاسی حوالے سے بعض اہمیت داری میں اردو میں بات کرنا چاہوں گا. سننے والے سارے دوست ہمارے جو موجود ہیں وہ کوشچن کو جس طرح سے انہوں نے فالو کیا اس کا جواب میں دینا چاہوں گا کہ اس میں دو بڑی امپورٹنٹ باتیں ہیں. ایک تو یہ ہے کہ موجودہ اسٹرگل جو بلوچستان میں اس وقت ریزسٹنس کی اور انڈیپینڈنس کی ہو رہی ہے, جو چل رہی ہے پچھلے 20 سال سے, اور یہ لانگسٹ رننگ ریزسٹنس موومنٹ ہے جو پاکستانی ریاست کے خلاف جنگی شکل کی صورت میں اور عام اسٹرگل کی صورت میں چل رہی ہے. تو اٹس دا لانگسٹ رننگ پرابلی ان دا ورلڈ آلسو. اس کو ہم کم کر کے نہیں دیکھ سکتے, اس کی اہمیت کو ہم کم نہیں کر سکتے. اور یہ ممکن نہیں ہے کہ اتنی طویل عرصے تک آپ ایک اسٹرگل کریں اور اس کو اس لیول پہ پہنچائیں جیسے آج پہنچا ہوا ہے یہ بلوچستان کے اندر, کہ پاکستانی ملٹری آج اگر بلوچستان سے فارغ ہو جائے یا ودرا ہو جائے یا اس کو وہاں سے نکال دیا جائے, تو بلوچستان میں ایک بھی پاکستانی ایسا انسٹیٹیوٹ نہیں ہے جو بلوچستان کو اپنے قابو میں رکھ سکے یا اس کو گورن کر سکے. بلوچستان بیکمز انڈیپینڈنٹ ٹوٹلی, اور اس کو پاکستان کا حصہ بنانے میں اور حصہ رکھنے میں, اس کو آکیپائڈ ٹیریٹری رکھنے میں سوائے آرمی کے پاکستان کے پاس اب اور کوئی اور راستہ ایسا نہیں بچا. تو دیٹ از اے پولیٹیکل ڈیفیٹ فار دا اسٹیٹ آف پاکستان. اس پولیٹیکل ڈیفیٹ کو ہم سیاسی حوالے سے دیکھیں کہ پولیٹیکل یونٹی بلوچوں کی اور پولیٹیکل آرگنائزیشنس کی یونٹی, پولیٹیکل لیڈرشپ کی یونٹی, وہ اس میں کیسے ٹرانسلیٹ ہو سکتی ہے, وہ کس طرح سے ڈائسپورا میں اور پاکستان کے خطے کے اندر یعنی کہ بلوچستان کے اندر جو ہے وہ اس کی شکل کیا ہوگی. تو میں اس کا جواب صرف یہ دینا چاہوں گا کہ جو بھی کچھ ہے گراؤنڈ ریالٹیز جو بلوچستان کے اندر ہیں وہ بیسکلی وہ پاور ہے, وہ فورس ہے جو ہر چیز کو رن کر رہی ہے. دیٹ از دا فیول دیٹس رننگ دا موومنٹ فار انڈیپینڈنس. ڈائسپورا اتنا بہت ہمارا جو ہے وہ پرانا نہیں ہے, بلکہ نیا ڈائسپورا ہے اور اس میں اتنی وسعت نہیں ہے, اتنی نیومیریکلی بھی ہم اتنے بڑی تعداد میں نہیں ہیں, نہ آرگنائز ہیں, نہ ریسورسفل ہیں. تو یہ چھوٹا موٹا ڈائسپورا ہے جو کہ کبھی اپنی جو آواز ہے ہیومن رائٹس کے حوالے سے, مسنگ پرسنس کے حوالے سے, دوسرے حوالے سے کچھ نہ کچھ یہ اپنی وہ کرتے رہتے ہیں ایکٹیویٹیز, وہ تو صحیح ہے. لیکن جو مین فورس ہے وہ بلوچستان کی سرزمین پر ہی ہے, اور بلوچستان کی سرزمین پہ اس وقت کوئی بھی کسی قسم کی, کیونکہ پاکستانی اسٹیٹ الاؤ نہیں کرے گا آپ کی پولیٹیکل ایکسپریشن کو کہ وہاں پر کوئی پولیٹیکل چیز بن سکے, پولیٹیکل الائنس بن سکے, پولیٹیکل آرگنائزیشنز جو ہیں وہ کھل کر سامنے آئیں اور اپنی یونٹی کا, اپنے پلیٹ فارم کا مکمل اظہار کریں اور عوام کے ساتھ ان کا جو رابطہ ہے ان کو اس کو اجازت دی جائے اس بات کی کہ وہ ماس آرگنائزیشن کی طرف جائیں. اس بات کی گنجائش جو ہے نا وہ پچھلے 20 سال کے اندر وقت کے ساتھ ساتھ اتنی کم ہو گئی ہے کہ وہ اسپیس ہی ختم ہو چکا ہے. تو لہٰذا ہم یہ اس وقت اس فیز کے اندر ہیں کہ ہم یہ نہیں کہہ سکتے کہ یہاں پر پولیٹیکل ایکسپریشن اور پولیٹیکل آرگنائزیشنز, پولیٹیکل یونٹی, پولیٹیکل لیڈرشپ جو ہے وہ سامنے آ سکے. جو ڈائسپورا باہر ہے اور جو لیڈرشپ باہر موجود ہے اس کو ہم دیکھ رہے ہیں کہ پچھلے کافی عرصے کے اندر وہ یا تو خاموش ہو گئے یا ایرریلیونٹ ہو گئے, اور ان کی خاموشی یا ان کا ایرریلیونس ہونا اس بات کا دوبارہ ثبوت ہے کہ کسی بھی لیڈرشپ کا اپنے سرزمین کے ساتھ جو وہاں موومنٹ چل رہی ہے اس کے ساتھ اس کی جو وابستگی, اس کا جو کنیکشن ہے, اگر وہ ویک ہو جاتا ہے یا وہ ٹوٹ جاتا ہے تو لیڈرشپ جو باہر ہوگی وہ ایرریلیونٹ ہے, اور اس کی فالوئنگ ماس فالوئنگ ہو یا دوسری طرح کی فالوئنگ یا پولیٹیکل فالوئنگ ہو, وہ اپنے آپ کو اس وقت نہیں منوا سکتی. تو پھر اس کے نتیجے میں یہی ہم کہہ سکتے ہیں کہ یہ سچویشن جو موجودہ ہے وہ آگے جا کے ایک ایسی شکل اختیار کر سکتی ہے اگر वहाँ पर कोई बड़ा चेंज आए, लेकिन उस चेंज का मतलब ये होता है कि पाकिस्तानी स्टेट की जो पॉलिसी है उसमें कोई चेंज आए। पाकिस्तानी रियासत जो है वो बलूचिस्तान के अंदर कोई अपनी तमाम पॉलिसीज़ को चेंज करे, तो उसकी सूरत में कोई यहाँ पर या बाहर या बलूचिस्तान के अंदर कोई इस तरह के माहौल बन सकता है कि वहाँ पर एक पॉलिटिकल सियासी मूवमेंट, सियासी लीडरशिप की शक्ल में सामने आएगी। लेकिन इसकी उन्होंने गुंजाइश छोड़ी नहीं है वहाँ पे एक सिंपल पाकिस्तानी स्टेट मिलिट्री है और उसके मुकाबले में एक रेजिस्टेंस है, और दरमियान में जो आवाम है वो पब्लिक जो है वो सफरिंग उसकी है, और सफरिंग रियासती जबर की वजह से है। और लेकिन इसके बावजूद इस मूवमेंट का चलना 20 साल तक इस बात का सबूत है कि आवाम के पास भी इसके पास कोई और चॉइस नहीं है कि वो अपने हुकूक सरेंडर नहीं करेंगे, वो रेजिस्टेंस का साथ देंगे। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि इस वक्त इस स्टेज पर जो है ना, हम किसी किस्म की बहुत बड़ी वेल एक्सप्रेस्ड और प्लेटफॉर्म या पॉलिटिकल यूनिटी का कोई ऐसा रास्ता इस वक्त हमारे पास नहीं है।
Thank you, Zafar. Thank you. Nasir, I am going to bring that question again. I don't know if it's really premature, to ask that question, but I remember that in the beginning you said it is going to be a lot more bloody in the coming, and I think Zafar also said that, the regime is not going to let it go easy. So will it be something that, the Baluch and the Kurd would eventually demand from the international community is to bring a no-fly zone over Iran?
Well, the thing is that regime change is not very easy in Iran. Regime change will happen when the regime does not want to care. And there is kind of, as I think Tariq was saying, that it was right, there should be a hierarchy, there should be a leadership, and there should be somehow very much organized. Currently, we are seeing that this movement is going on, and it will continue. I don't think it will stop. Maybe it's a small periodically, but it will start again for another reason. But the thing is that what is the incentive for having kind of a no-fly zone? It happened in Iraqi Kurdistan or to some part in Syria. It was simply because there was armed resistance and there was some kind of use for the USA to make sure that there is no fly zone because of the Saddam what he did. And they were there, they were trying to, as they were saying, to free Kuwait. And then what happened with the Kurds when they had an uprising for their independence or for their freedom, and they tried to help them. But I'm not sure the same thing would happen in Iran, except if we have, as you mentioned in the beginning, the Chinese involvement in Iran, and then maybe West will become much more interested. But currently, there is no. I know the Kurds, because of the previous contact, have asked for a no-fly zone in the Kurdish region. But then when America has a no-fly zone, there should be Iran is not using is airplane or helicopter to bomb Balochistan. Actually, it used them in Balochistan in the first day in September, but not in Kurdish region to that extent, only on the Khawaji outside Iran. So at the moment, there is not that kind of armed resistance, so that there should be asked. If it comes to that one, well, that should be considered on that circumstances. And there should be some benefit for the U.S. or it's only country that can do that one is the U.S. No other country that can do a no-fly zone in Iran, particularly in the two regions like Balochistan and Kurdish region, which are separated geographically. One is near Turkish border, and one near is Afghanistan and Pakistan border. So it is difficult. I'm not sure if they are going to do that one. But the best thing is that we currently, the movement that's going in Iran, we try to make sure that it is not split more than it is. The people are in this movement for different reasons, because it's a revolutionary movement. It has some kind of for the women's right, which is, as was discussed here, is really, really important. And we make sure that it's going on and changing the regime. And we will see how things develop from there. Anything could happen after that one. It's not for sure what will happen. And that's why many Persian groups before and currently also very much hesitant to join this movement. They don't know what the future holds, because at least they know that at least their nationality, or as they see it, their country is integrity or is intact to some extent. But for us, for the Kurds and Baluch and other national minorities, anything is better than current situation because it is somehow very difficult to hold the situation for us. We will see what international politics develop and how the Russia or China come to play and how the West will see that one. Is it America ready to return to the Middle East? Of course, this is the JCPOA problem and the Iranian nuclear problem and the Israeli problem with Iran. There are many things that can develop, can change dynamic very well, very much that we don't know. But the thing is that currently no-fly zone, I don't think it's something that is viable and somebody will do it for us.
Nasser, do you want to give, as last, because we're talking about your region today, would you like to give any message to your own community, to the international community, to the people who are listening?
Well, the people are listening, but everybody is currently, as I said, we want to make sure that this movement goes on, even if it is periodically, it's be less and more, but movement has to continue and to reach to its conclusion. The conclusion is getting rid of the Islamic Republic of Iran because, as we know, what we see, the Sunni Islamic, political Islam, it has somehow some connection with Iran. If we do not have Iran as this Islamic government, then it would not interfere in the region, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and in Lebanon, and these kind of things. Then there would not be so many reasons for the Sunni to become more political in that region. So that would be very helpful in itself, and that's what we want. And we want everybody to listen to that one. And we have to understand the different kind of historical perspective, historical development, what's happening in Eastern Balochistan and in Western Balochistan. And of course, we can see it in Northern Balochistan, in Afghanistan. There we have a different kind of dynamism there, different kind of history. At least for the last 100 years or 50 years, or whatever we call it, from which period we take it, there have been different development and different situation, there have been different political development, and we see regional interest is different. For instance, when it comes to Pakistani situation, there is another interest, and when it comes to the Iranian situation, there is another interest. We have to understand our regional dynamism, country dynamism, and international situation, geopolitics, at the same time be aware of our own shortcomings. As it was mentioned, we have to listen to people, not to be somehow just to say that you are wrong and you are this and that. No, we have to listen. We have some fault in our own movement. We have some things that we have to make sure that we have to be, I think we have to listen to critical point of view. We have to be more courageous and to accept our fault and try to make sure that we change them. We make it's maybe slow progress, but we have to do that one. Otherwise, we will not succeed. We have to come to a conclusion where we are all free. Freedom is for everybody. It's not for only Baluch, for the Punjabis, for the Persian. Everybody has to understand that one. We all have to have our freedom. We all can live together. We are all neighbors. We are all close to each other. We have to like each other sometimes in future, but we have to work together and we have to be open to the critic. And hopefully, everybody support this current movement that's happening in Iran is for the women's rights, for the national minorities' rights, and for the youth. And hopefully, we can get it right this time. Thank you very much. How are you? I don't hear anything.
Do you hear me?
No, I hear you. Yes, thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. So we wrap up here. It's a very healthy debate, and thank you for your presence here. I think it was very important to get an insight from Western Balochistan, and your comments and your information that you shared with us is very valuable. We believe that we need to, even if we are taking baby steps, doesn't matter. We need to continue to stand with the Baloch on both sides of this disputed line, and we hope that one day they emerge as a nation. And we, as an outsider, the least we can do is we just continue to support them. And for all the failures that we have seen in the past, it will only strengthen them. It will only bring them together and stronger. in their resolve to be a free nation. So thank you so much, Zafar. Thank you so much, Tariq, Nasir, and thank you for all other callers who were asking questions. Thank you so much, Bir Zubair Shah, and we will say a very happy